They're militarizing is to protect Kiev. And also, I don't think they want to see Ukraine demilitarized. I think that's the main point I'm making. So when the West wants to come and back up Ukraine, and also they're concerned about Poland, they want to make sure that these countries have a strong military, so that they can say that that is the end of where any encroachment by Russia goes on. Because before then,
no problem.
they couldn't have any policy except to follow.
Yeah, you know who loses from that? Let me tell you who loses from that. Now that the West spends so much money on backing up Ukraine, right? They lose because now they don't have money for heat and for their economy, and they will starve. Money they could be spending on their healthcare and on their schools, they're going to spend it on defending themselves, and they're going to fall apart from inside. That Europe defending itself is going to impoverish them unnecessarily, because Russia has never encroached to try to attack Europe. So what I'm saying is that the European governments have created a lie which says that Russia is an aggressive nation, and they're doing that. They're going to starve their own countries. What do you think? Trump and Russia are talking. Russia, once again, they have no motivation to really end this war, but they will negotiate with the U.S. And if the U.S. can give them a good enough deal, they might not a total ceasefire, but they'll stop attacking electrical power grids in Kiev for a little while. And they'll allow the Ukrainians to use the Black Sea to bring their grains and things in. But ultimately, Ukraine is going to have to demilitarize the way Germany did after World War II, before Russia ends this war, because it's an existential threat. It's the same as if you put nuclear weapons in Mexico. America will not stop until Mexico has no army. So what I'm saying is that will not stop until Ukraine has no army. They'll still have the West to back them up from behind in Poland with weapons, but Ukraine must be demilitarized. What do you think, Kunle?
Yeah, well, the West is beginning to militarize again. They're doubling their budgets. And you should never write them off because, before when World War II started...
It's not about the West demilitarizing. Ukraine, Kiev...
Yes, I know. It's directly linked to that. I'm linking it directly to that. Is that the West are going to come in and back up Ukraine. They're going to back up Ukraine. And I think that's going to, I don't know yet.
Here's the main question. Sorry? After they militarize, will they send troops to try and take back Donbass? Do you think they'll be that stupid?
That's extremely doubtful. I think that what they're looking at...
So them militarizing is irrelevant because it's only to protect Kiev, and Russia doesn't want to attack Kiev.
Yeah, they're militarizing is to protect Kiev. And also, I don't think they want to see Ukraine demilitarized. I think that's the main point I'm making. So when the West wants to come and back up Ukraine, and also they're concerned about Poland, they want to make sure that these countries have a strong military, so that they can say that that is the end of where any encroachment by Russia goes on. Because before then,
no problem.
But you don't have any policy except to follow.
Yeah, who loses from that? Let me tell you who loses from that. Now that the West spends so much money on backing up Ukraine, right? They lose because now they don't have money for heat and for their economy, and they will starve.
I don't think that these countries...
Russia has hypersonic missiles, and Russia and China combined spend less money than the U.S. and NATO on weapons. So what I'm saying is that Europe now loses because money they could be spending on their healthcare and on their schools, they're going to spend it on defending themselves, and they're going to fall apart from inside.
No doubt the economies are going to take a hit, but the economies will survive the hit they're going to take.
Yeah, but they're going to be second class, and they're no longer going to. Their crime rates will go up, their education rates will go up, and meanwhile, Russia and China and Korea will now destroy the market when it comes to economy and education and IT, and now countries like people around the world will be going towards BRICS rather than Europe. So what I'm trying to say is that Europe defending itself is going to impoverish them unnecessarily because Russia has never encroached to try to attack Europe. So what I'm saying is that the European governments have created a lie which says that Russia is an aggressive nation, and they're doing that. They're going to starve their own countries. What do you think, Saeed?
I was going to say it was America that created that impression.
Yeah, but
Europe didn't have an opinion up to now.
But Britain and all of them followed along with it. They followed along with it. So they're
that's
stupid.
America, not the Europe had its own independent ideas.
But my argument is that Europe knows these guys are smart. They're not stupid. The European leaders know, and they came into this agreement with the U.S. They know that all of this is a lie. The Europeans know that Russia is not a threat. Russia gave up 27 million people to liberate Europe from Germany. If the Europeans don't know history, they need to ask themselves, who's the biggest enemy of Europe? Is it Germany or Russia? Germany is the biggest enemy of Europe.
No lie.
The Russians sacrificed 27 million people to make sure that Germany can no longer dominate the world with their fucking Nazis. And the Europeans will tell me that Russia is the threat. No,
I think it's part of the media propaganda we are talking about. So
Europeans are stupid. Europeans are stupid. Look at history. The only person, Germany caused 2 world wars. They killed 6 million Jews. And now you're shouting about Russia. And now they're letting Germany militarize again. They're making the same mistake they keep making, Kunle. What are your thoughts?
I think we all agree that whatever the black painting of Russia, I think we all know that it's America media, legacy media.
Yeah, but the Europeans are falling for it. How stupid can the Europeans be? How stupid can they? Can the Europeans not remember?
I mean, this is the same thinking. This is the same thinking I'm thinking
Western
that
Europe
I said that
generally the culture of Western Europe is moving towards a far right footing, which is in line with the neo-Nazi battalions at Ukraine.
They're becoming who they were.
The Dutch, they're all going far right.
We saw what Germany did to France. They occupied France. We saw what they did to Britain. They bombed the hell out of Britain. And what's his name? Churchill said, we will not be defeated. They saw what the Germans did. And meanwhile, they're allowing this to happen again. That means that the Europeans are stupid.
How do you mean they're allowing? What are you saying they're allowing to happen again? Because I don't follow.
To happen again. They're using their money to aggress Russia, and now Germany is building its army again. Nobody knows what Germany will do when they build their army again. The Germans have proven that allow them to build their army, they turn on Western Europe, and they're doing it again.
True.
Well, the thing is that the far right movement in Germany is not as strong as I would say it is in the Dutch and the Belgian, the Benelux countries. Those countries are more far right.
They were part of the German Axis as well. Axis during the World War II. The Dutch and the Austrian. The Dutch and the Austrian were part of the German Axis.
Yes, but the Germans at the moment, they're not. Their government is not as extreme as those countries for now. So I'm not sure whether the German mind is.
We don't know what the Germans will do. Kule, in Germany, if you wave Palestinian flags, they beat you. They beat children. They beat children and put them in jail.
Yeah, they also do the same thing if you wave Nazi flags.
Yeah. So my whole point is that Europe is saying that Russia is the evil force. Europe is the evil force. Europe is becoming a fascist state, and the reason they're becoming fascist is they don't have resources anymore. That's my point. What do you think, Said? Let me to talk. Go ahead.
Yeah, I quite agree with what you're saying. Like, I don't know. That is the same thought that I have. That I asked that question. That what were all those majority of Ukrainians looking while Zelensky and some powerful people went to war with Russia, knowing, as in we that we are not in Africa, me with my common sense, I can think of it that, man, it's a bad idea. So that's why I'm thinking
65% polls support the war.
Racism.
65%
Let me tell you what it is. It's ethnic xenophobia. The Ukrainians went to war because they don't like the Russian speakers, and the Russian speakers outnumber them, and were able to vote in a Russian-speaking president. So what it is xenophobia and tribalism. That's all. And they're willing to die because they hate people in Ukraine who speak Russian. Who are their brothers? These guys were together as the Soviet Union.
Yeah, they're brothers, though. You guys share neighbor, as in share brothers. It's crazy, man.
Not only that, they were part of the same country. And if you listen to the Ukrainian language and the Russian language, they all understand each other. You understand what I'm saying? The language is almost the same. The culture is the same. It's just that they hate these people. And to be honest with you, and during World War II, the Ukrainians, some of them helped Hitler. The Banderites. And they're the same ones who are fighting the Russian speakers. These are Nazis. The people, the Western Ukrainians are Nazis. Am I wrong, Kunle?
Yeah. You're not wrong. Some of their battalions actually still have
they were the ones who were in the forefront in starting the Civil War.
It's heavily downplayed. And it goes into all the things I'd said about the West. All these things about their growing hatred for foreigners, the far-right movement, the culture of these foreigners. And Europe was rebuilt off the back of Africa. I sent a little thing on that earlier. Europe could not have built itself back post-World War II without Africa's contributions, which was more than America, by the way. Although the numbers
raw materials.
So the very people that they despise, they are totally dependent on them for these materials in order to have the standards of living that they had. We've only had 70 years in the whole of man's life where there was a distribution of wealth in Europe shortly after the war. Prior to then, they had just as many poor people as they did in Africa. You know, it was just a tiny rich people and mostly poor. Shortly after the war, with those resources, they created a middle class. That middle class is already beginning to die out in Europe. It's not gone far, but the beginnings to start. Before you could be a postman and own a house in England, now that's just not happening. So the poor working class now is going back, is degrading back to how life was post-industrial revolution.
Which is why they're trying to come up with a new plan. And they're very angry that Trump is in office. Yeah.
Yes, and that's a breeding ground for extremism. And that's
Trump
a breeding ground for racial xenophobic hate. And also the problem, and then they also believe, although they've always been the aggressor of the world, they believe that the Muslims are the aggressors, whereas the Muslims have never invaded anywhere in Europe. All they do is fight in their own land, and then they are the aggressors. You know, there's this kind of rhetoric of propaganda that we just don't pay notice to. You know, you say Islam extremism, all their fighting is done on their home turf. All their fighting is done in their home turf. There's no Muslim force that's pushing into Western Europe with tanks and guns. Yeah, and there was no terrorism in Europe until Europe had this decision to go into the Middle East. There was none. And now the link between, because of what's going on in Russia, they now realize that they could be cut off. That is why they're trying to have a war, to create a war with Iran. Because if they can take Iran's resources and Iran's access, because Iran is responsible for 40% of the movement of the world's oil, aside from being a major oil producer themselves, the access, the world markets of the oil, if Iran is cut off, if Iran cuts off the West are actually screwed. And that is also linked. That's why Russia also has the allegiance with Iran. These two war zones or potential war zones, they're going to coincide. That's the one involving America and Iran, and the one involving Russia and America. All of these things are coinciding, and the major thing that's combining the two of them is oil, because even in Ukraine, is their main resource is grain. But I also know that in the Caucasus, they also have a lot of oil there. So that's why there's so much wealth in those two war regions that is going to cause a big major shift in geopolitical areas.
Very good analysis. Let's shift because we have to answer. Very good analysis. But what's putting a wrinkle in this whole thing is that, going back to our premise of our beginning of the show, U.S. and Russia now have good relationship, and as long as Trump is in office, Europe is not going to really be able to start this war. And well, he's pushing this Iran thing, but it's going to be still stabilized because Europe is not going to get their hands on Ukrainian resources. Those resources are going to America and Russia. Europe is still left to the move. And unless Europe has the support of America, they don't have the support of America anymore because Biden is gone. They can't really pull out their full thing, which is why they tried to kill Trump. This is why they tried to kill Trump, because they saw this coming. Trump is a wrinkle in the plan of Europe, because when Biden was there, he was full in. Thank God Trump didn't get killed. What are your last thoughts on this for our side?
My condolence to Ukrainian citizens. That
also, my condolences to Trump here. Sorry to cut you. My condolences to Trump here.
Because you can imagine. Look at your analysis now. We are sharing a country, as in between America and Russia. Like, this is something that a few years ago, I think 3 or 4 years ago, nothing like that is happening. Yeah, you understand. Instead of you to just come to the table and just find a reasonable way of ending things. Now look at the amount of things that they have lost. They have lost Donbass. They have lost so many cities. They have lost their mineral resources.
They may still lose Odessa. They've lost Crimea. Yeah, they may still lose Odessa.
For what? Right, even not for the fact that Russia don't want to even forge ahead, that they are slowing down, they can go further.
Russia can pull it forward. And to end, Russia has said that for now they want to attack electrical infrastructure in Kiev right now, but they're not going to.
Russia needs to they just want to clear out the Kursk region, and they want to secure their victory. Once they've secured their victory, then America and Ukraine can negotiate whatever nonsense they want to do. But Russia just wants to make sure they secure the Donbass. They had initially just wanted to have a naval base in Sevastopol, but now they're going to want to have a proper demarcation, proper buffer zone. They want to make sure that that area is demilitarized by Ukraine. Ukraine is going to have to pay America in resources. So Ukraine is a big loser. Europe is
and it goes back to West Side.
They're the big loser. They're the big loser. That's the point I'm trying to make.
That's going to be the title of our show. What the hell was Ukrainian people thinking?
I don't understand that.
They're the biggest losers in this whole thing.
All right, guys, that's the biggest winner. I don't think America is gaining anything because they've lost a major ally. They've never won a war by themselves without the help of
America. I think Zelensky might to sign a mineral deal.
Under Trump, I keep saying this, America is going to become a BRICS nation because they also have a lot of resources. So they're also the biggest winner because they weren't gaining anything from Europe because they're no longer an imperial country. The U.S. is no longer an imperial country, so they don't need Europe.
They've lost international trust. No one's going to trust America
don't need Europe.
International trust. They don't need Europe because once they join BRICS, Africa trusts them. Russia, China, they don't need Europe. The biggest evil in this world is Europe. They're the ones who've lost international trust. Europeans started slavery. They started World War I, World War II. They were the ones who killed the Jews. Everybody now knows that Europe is more evil than America.
Historically, America is put in that same bucket with the West.
No, but if you look at it historically, America is a young country. They haven't done the damage that Europe did. Europe started.
That's where most of the slaves went. I mean, they have that history.
Yeah, but who started slavery? No. Who started it? It was the Portuguese and the British.
It's still all part of Western Europe and America. They can't escape.
America has resources. And here's the bigger thing. We can trust America because at least America has more oil than the Middle East. They have steel. They have 300 million people. They have work. Europe has nothing. You can't trust a poor man.
Europe has steel. They have aluminium. They have grain. They have oil. They have an economy. In about 10 years, they can rearm.
Kumale, who has done more damage to Nigeria? Britain or US?
Of course, Britain.
Oh yeah, I'll end the show on that. Thank you guys. We'll talk. This has been a beautiful show. We'll talk next time. Kunle, we have F1 later.